welcome. My name is Lexi Jong, and here I like to talk about luxury makeup. And today we're going to be going over a few product updates, and let's go ahead and start off with this. This is the new Givenchy. This is, I think it's called Le Rouge Balm. Yes, Le Rouge Balm. It comes in one shade, 08 Universal. You have a white leather case, and inside this, actually it looks white. You can see you've got the Givenchy logo on the bullet. And let me just show you what this looks like on my hand. You can see it is clear. So even when I build it up, it's still pretty clear. So you see it right there. Now I have been using this for, it's probably about a month now. It's definitely been at least 4 weeks. So this retails for $38. It just recently came out. I pre-ordered it actually when I saw it coming available. So I picked it up then and I've been using it since. Most of the time I have been using this in the morning. So I usually use this, when I do my skincare in the morning. I apply a little bit of the lip balm. I have occasionally worn it at night, but usually I use something a little bit thicker. This has a thinner texture to it. If you are familiar with the Dior lip balm, it is kind of similar to that texturally, the same amount of like firmness and so forth to the product. So it's a thin, kind of a little waxy texture to it. It's clear and there is a floral scent to it. And if you're familiar with Givenchy's lipsticks, it is the same scent. And I have to say though that it's been very comfortable. Now in comparison between this and the Dior, which one do I prefer? I actually prefer this one. This one feels slightly more emollient than the Dior, which just feels a little bit, it's just, this one's a little bit more emollient. So I just like the texture of this one slightly better. They are very similar though in texture. So on my lips right now, I actually have the lip balm on. And then on top of the lip balm, I added a little bit of the Pat McGrath Starstruck lip liner. And I barely went over it with that and just kind of rubbed my lips in for just the faintest bit of color. But to say this is very comfortable. Now, again, like all of these lip balms we've been seeing recently, they've been doing like 24-hour hydration tests and so forth. So this is supposed to be hydrating for up to 24 hours. And one of the things that I found interesting is, I can't remember what the ingredient is, but there's an ingredient in there and I will print that on the screen, but it is supposed to boost collagen production. So I don't know how well that works. Those are, I believe that was an in vitro test. Since that was an in vitro test, it's hard to say exactly how well you're actually boosting collagen from applying it to your lips. But that is something that intrigued me. And of course, it has like jojoba oil for moisture and hydration, has hyaluronic acid spheres, and a variety of other ingredients to boost hydration and shine. And I really like this. So retails for $38 US. It is widely available now. I love the white leather case. I always really like Givenchy's packaging, and the white in particular, I just think it's so nice and fresh looking. So I really like this, and I don't taste anything with this. So I do have that, I can smell the floral scent when I'm applying it. I don't notice it on my lips. It's not, for me, it's not overpowering. But if you're familiar with Givenchy lipsticks, if those are overpowering to you, it's about the same level. But I don't actually taste anything. So if I lick my lips while I have this on here, I don't taste any of the lip balm, which is a definite plus. Moving on, we're going to talk about the Dior Forever Natural Bronzer. And I picked up shade number 4, Tan Bronze. And I have used this in a few videos, but I never did like a formal review of this. So I'm just going to show you this swatched here. And then I'm going to cut to a clip of me applying this today so you can see this on my skin. And then we're going to do just a few shade comparisons. This is the Dior Forever Natural Bronze in 04 Tan Bronze. And I'm using the SUQQU F04 brush. And we're just going to start here. So I hope that was helpful. Before we move on to the comparisons, just a little information about this. This is 9 grams or 0.31 ounces, has a 12-month shelf life, and it is not a super powdery formula. You can see even like where I swatched it, where I've used it with a brush, you don't really get any kick up in the pan. So it's a smooth powder. It blends very seamlessly. And, I really like the texture of this. Texturally, it reminds me of a blurring powder. And I think that's one of the great things about this bronzer is it does have a little bit of a blurring capability to it. So if you're familiar with the Chantecaille Perfect Blur Powder or the Sisley Blur Expert, you know how that's like a little bit firmer in the pan and it has a little bit of a silky texture to it. That's what this feels like texturally to me. So let's just go through a few comparisons. By the way, this does have the quilted top and you can see it's still a slim compact, but it matches this is the powder, the cushion powder, but the cushion powder or cream. So they all kind of match together. In comparison, this is Gucci in number 1, Fair, which is my favorite bronzer. And you can see color-wise, the Dior is going to be warmer. It has more golden undertones, whereas the Gucci has a bit more red in it. Next, we have the Chantecaille bronzer in Goa. And this is actually like a gel to powder type formula. And there's that. You can see it's a lot deeper. It's also cooler in tone than the Dior. And then this one is Tom Ford in Terra. I'm going to put this one at the top because it's a little bit closer in color here. So you can see that it's going to be a little bit cooler still than the Dior and a little bit deeper. So we have Tom Ford Terra, Dior 04, Gucci 01, Chantecaille Goa. Now, out of all of these bronzers, I still have to say that the Gucci is my favorite. It is slightly more powdery than the Dior, but I just really like the way that it applies. And for me, the biggest thing is the undertones. This like reddish tint works really well for my complexion. Formula-wise, I think they are both great, but there's something about the Gucci one that for me just applies a little bit more smoothly than the Dior. The Dior does apply smoothly. Again, if you're somebody who can wear like more than just a touch of bronzer, this is actually a really great option because it has some blurring abilities in it. So if you apply, a bronzer more than what I do, then, this could be a really good alternative in my opinion. So out of these bronzers though, I would have to say that the Gucci is my number 1 and the Dior is my number 2. So just for a little reference, I still really like the Dior. Moving on, I just want to touch briefly on the newest fragrance from Chanel. This is Les Eaux de Chanel. Okay, so it's in that line. And the newest fragrance is Paris Edinburgh. And this, I've been using this for a few days now at the boutique that I use. Jelissa and Katty, they were kind enough to send me samples of the perfume. So I've been testing it out to kind of get an idea of what I think of it. And I'm not going to go into like a full-blown fragrance review or anything like that. Again, I'm not a huge fragrance buff, but just quick impressions of this. It is not long wearing, as you might expect by the fact that it's in a Les Eaux de Chanel, so water of Chanel. So it is a fresh scent. It's a juniper scent. It reminds me a little bit of a slightly more feminine cologne or aftershave or something like that. So it reminds me vaguely of something that my dad used when I was younger, but it's a little bit lighter in weight than that. And it's a little bit, there's something in there, there's a little lavender in there that just makes it a little bit more feminine. However, it is a unisex scent, I believe. I definitely could see it being unisex. And it's not super long wearing. So, I put it on and immediately for me, it smells like you are walking in the woods. And, this scent was actually meant to remind you of a tweed jacket that is hanging in a closet after it has walked through the woods. So it's supposed to be light and fresh and kind of remind you of the woods. And I have to say that's a pretty good way to describe it. So it's light, it's fresh. When I first put it on, it smells a little bit more woodsy. After it reacts with my skin chemistry, it gets a little bit lighter and fresher. But you know, it's something that I can probably smell more on myself. Like if I move my wrist or something like that, I can smell it for, you know, a couple hours. It does progressively get fainter, but there's not a lot of throw with the fragrance. What I mean by that is if you are standing across from me and speaking with me, you're not really going to smell it very much. It really kind of remains in your own like little radius. So it's not something that's going to be like strong and overpowering when you wear it around other people. So do I like this? At first, I wasn't so sure, but the more I've used it, the more I like it. And so yes, I do like it. I don't know if I like it enough I probably don't like it enough to purchase it, just because I'm typically more of like the light floral type scents or something a little citrusy. But I do like this and I find it refreshing. So I'm going to continue using the samples and see whether I want to purchase a bigger bottle of this. But I do really think it's a nice scent and it's different from all of the other Chanel scents that I have smelled. So I think it's a nice change of pace for Chanel. Next up, we're not going to talk about these too much, but I just want to go over the recent blushes. So obviously we are in the year of the blushes. I have been purchasing way too many blushes this year, but I just want to touch on the reformulated Chanel, the Sisley, and the Hermes. So as I've been saying since the Sisley came out, this is my favorite formula. It is still #1 for me. I love this formula. It's very pigmented, it has a great texture, and it doesn't like settle into lines or accentuate texture unless you're dealing with like #4 Golden Rose, which has some shimmer to it. The other shades 1, 2, 3, and 5, those do not have any shimmer. They do not accentuate texture on the skin or fine lines or anything like that. So I love them. The Sisley is still my #1 favorite blush formula. However, we have recently looked at the Chanel, the reformulated Chanel blushes, and I know a lot of people don't like them. They prefer the originals. And, you know, I think I don't have a problem with the newly formulated ones. I think they are nice. I do notice a difference between the older ones when I'm applying them. When I first got the new version, you know, there didn't seem to be quite as much of a difference, but the more I've used them, you know, after you kind of get through those like top layers and so forth, it does seem a little bit firmer in the pan. So certain shades have been a little bit more problematic than others, but I wouldn't say any of them are truly a problem. So I like the new formula. I don't have an issue with it. I still like these blushes. And as for the Hermes blushes, I picked up all of these, and I know a lot of people have been wondering, well, am I still wearing them? And yes, I am. These are still a powder blush that I've been reaching for quite a bit. So actually right now, after the Sisley, my favorite is the Hermes. So Sisley, then Hermes. And yeah, I'm actually wearing this shade here, Rose Blush, right now. And I really like these. So I think they have a beautiful silky texture to them, and they've got some great shades in there as well. So I am really enjoying all of these, but again, the Sisley and the Hermes are going to be my top 2 favorite formulas at the moment. Now, just to mention another one that is a favorite still would be the By Terry blushes that they do not make anymore. They do have them still at Saks, but this one here is #4, Nude Dance, but #1, Platonic Blonde, also is a favorite. This formula is still right up there with the Hermes and the Sisley for me. It's just unfortunately been discontinued, and I did ask them if they were bringing it back, but I didn't get an answer yet. I'm sure they probably don't want to divulge any information about their plans, but hopefully it's been noted that it is requested, because I know a lot of other people really like this formula also. So I think it's a great one. Next, we're moving on to Dior Lucky Clover, and this is what I have on my eyes. And we know that when we swatch Dior Lucky Clover, you really see more of that black base coming through. So today I applied it with a wet brush so you can really see a lot more of that green metallic, and I think it's a beautiful, beautiful shade. So I'm gonna cut to a clip right now of the application of this so you can see how much of a true emerald it looks like when you are using it wet. Okay, so we're starting off with 573 Nude Dress. This is a satin formula. Taking the Crease 2 brush from Sonia G. I'm just gonna put this in the crease. Just gonna put a little bit of that in the outer corner there. Next, I'm going to take the Rephr 28 brush. You can see it's just a flat shader. And this is my Evian spray water. And I'm going to dampen my brush for use with Lucky Clover, number 280 satin. All right, so my brush is dampened. So I just spray it and then kind of wipe off any excess on the back of my hand. So I'm just gonna put this all over the lid. That's Lucky Clover applied wet. Okay, I'm just gonna add a little bit more. I'm dampening my brush again. I'm just gonna add a little bit more of the green so it looks a little sparse right here towards the outer end. Next, I'm taking the Sonia G Flat Definer. I'm just gonna spray this. So I just sprayed it and then I just wipe off any excess so it's not dripping wet. I'm gonna use this for the lower lash line. Again, Lucky Clover. So with a brush like this, I always just kind of dab it on the edge, just make sure that it's not clumpy. Okay, so now that the lid is dry, I'm going back in with the Crease 2 brush. Just gonna kind of buff the edges here. Okay, and then I wiped off the flat definer. I'm gonna spray it again. And then I'm just gonna take a little bit on the side of the bristles of 006 Pearl Star Glitter. And this is for the inner corner. So this is Lucky Clover wet. So I hope that was helpful. There's not too much to say about this. I am still enjoying the Dior singles. I like them more and more the more I use them. And this Lucky Clover shade, you know, I absolutely love it wet. I think it's a gorgeous shade. And I wish, you know, that when you use it dry, you could still get a little bit more of that sheen. There wasn't so much of that black base. But I'm very happy that this shade, you really can get this true emerald green shade using it wet. So I personally really, really like it. Now, still sticking with Dior, this is number 763 Rosewood Matte in the Dior Monos. And I did have a request to compare this to the newest Dior Quint, which I can't really say very well. It's number 429 Toile de Jouy. So that's this one here. So I think it looks most closely to this. So we're gonna swatch the middle shade first and then I'll put the other shades underneath. So you can see it's gonna be softer. It's also a satin formula here. And shade-wise, this is slightly cooler than the Rosewood. And these are the other two shades, or other four shades. So we've got the top two, which are very, very light. This is a topper shade here. This one is also gonna be very soft and sheer. And then these two here are the bottom two shades. So you can see tone-wise, this is definitely gonna have a little bit more like of a rust shade in it compared to Rosewood. And obviously this shade here is a lot more brown and cooler. All right, and last up, we just have some updates on the SUQQU Summer collection. So as we know, the collection, the launch didn't really go super well, in my opinion. They didn't have everything available, came up at different times. I think the actual stock was pretty low, and that's probably because of the glitch they had in the system a week or two ago where, you know, people were able to buy like the eyeshadows and stuff early. However, I still haven't seen the eyeliners pop up at all, either during the glitch or during the launch. Now, from what I understand, SUQQU is intending on restocking, and Selfridges should have new supply, I believe, this week sometime. So if you're interested in any of those items, definitely take a look this week and follow SUQQU Europe on Instagram. If you keep checking their stories, that's where they release the information. Now, as for the actual collection, I have really been enjoying it. So I've been playing with both of the palettes quite a bit, and I have to say that I really thought this one was going to be my favorite. You can see I've used this like topper shade quite a bit. And this is number 105. I know a lot of people really want this palette, but I have to say the 104 is actually my favorite. So this is 105. So you got this topper shade. It's not really bluish, and actually when I put it on different shades, the sparkle actually looks a little bit more pink. So you can see that everything here, these two actually have plum tones to them. And then we have this like warmer raspberry shade. So it's a really nice color story, but I actually prefer the 104. So here's the 104. And this is one that I actually considered not getting. I'm going to swatch this on my other arm. So I apologize if the swatches aren't as great, but this one here, I have been reaching for all the time. Like even that orange shade, which I never wear orange eyeshadow, but yesterday I did a look all with the orange eyeshadow. Actually, let me cut here. I'm going to show you that look right now. So I want to combine both of these SUQQU palettes. So we're going to start off with the crease. I'm going to use the orange in here and the raspberry shade in here and just kind of mix them together. And I am using the SUQQU Classic Crease Brush. So that's actually more vibrant than I was thinking. So we're going to go into the 104 palette. I'm going to go into this beige camel shade, and we're going to just kind of go over that on the upper portion of the crease to kind of lighten that a little bit. I'm taking the SUQQU Soft Shader. I'm going to go into this beige shade again and just put a little bit of this right on the inner portion here. I'm going to go over this, but I want to make sure it has like a soft base. Next, I'm taking the raspberry shade, and I'm just going to put a little bit of this right next to that. Well, on top of it, essentially. Just a little bit there. And next, I'm going to go into this orange shade. I'm going to put that all over the lid. So I'm just going to go back in, just add a little bit more of that raspberry there so it's a little bit more evident. I feel like you can't really see it too much. There, you can barely see it, but it just gives the littlest bit of a different tone there. Just going to kind of clean up the crease a little bit with the Classic Crease. And next, I'm going to go into the 105 palette in the shade that looks blue. And I call this the Scattered Starlight. And we're just going to put this all over. And it's going to just kind of cool things down. So there's that. And then I'm just going to line it with some powder. I'm actually going to go into this shade here. It's actually got a plum undertone to it. This is a smudger 2 from SUQQU. I'm just going to edge this along the upper lash line. And whatever's left, I'm just going to add a little bit here to the lower lash line. All right, for the inner corner, I'm just going to take the side of the smudger too into the Guerlain Meteorized Pearl Dust. I'm going into the shade that looks white. It's the Pearly Gold. Just going to dab a little bit of that right here. All right, I'll add some mascara and I'll show you a distance shot. And this is the final look from a distance. And the other things I have on, I have the Koh Gen Do Aqua Foundation in 012. And then I have a bunch of Salt New York products on. So around my lips, I lined them with the Rose Framboise number 182 from Chanel. So this is the lip liner. And then I filled it in with the Raspberry Lip Tint from Salt New York. And I also have on their Pearl Highlight. And see here, their contour shade, which just says contour. And I also used a tiny bit of the beige shade as well. So I have all of that on, and the Chanel Metal Terracotta Mascara along with the Gucci Brow Pencil in 03. And that's everything. Okay, so I hope that was helpful, but you can see here that you've got this beautiful orange, you have this like beige camel khaki kind of color, and then this brown here. I love this brown. It has like a little hint of orange in it as well. It's got this beautiful satin sheen. I have been really loving this. So I've also been mixing and matching these palettes, and I have really been enjoying the combinations with these as well. And I did get some requests to compare the Chanel Le Beige Intense palette with this. And we're going to start with the shades. I'm going to start with 1, 2, and 3. So the non-greens, I'll put the greens at the end since they definitely don't go with this. So here are these, and you can see that even though these are warm in tone, the undertones are going to be different. Like this brown here is going to be closest to this, but you can see that the SUQQU one, it still has kind of that rusty orange undertone to it, whereas this one doesn't. It's really a lot more brown with golden undertones. I think that's the biggest difference with these, is these are going to be rust undertones versus golden undertones. And just for completion, these are the greens in the Le Beige. Then I also had a request to look at the shades here in the Poncho palette from Dior. This is $5.59. Okay, so I'm gonna take the topper shade from Poncho and put that right here next to the topper. You can see that the Poncho is gonna be much more gold. And one of the differences is I feel like the SUQQU ones really look like scattered starlight. It's kind of like a sheer base with glitter that kind of spreads out and diffuses, whereas there's like a tiny bit of pigment with the Dior topper. So this is going to be the first shade in the Dior palette. And then let's take a look at the middle shade. I'll put the middle one up here as well. So you can see it's going to be a little bit more brown, whereas this has a lot more like camel color. Okay, and now we're going to look at the bottom two here. So here are the bottom two. I'm going to put them right here so you can kind of see how they go with this, but you can see that these are going to be cooler in tone than the SUQQU, and you can see having these next to it how much more of that orange really peeks through in the SUQQU palette. We're just going to take a look at the Byredo Disco palette also. Okay, so I'm going to put these down here. These are the first 3 shades. And the last 2 are here. So here's Byredo Disco versus the SUQQU. I'm going to compare the brown one to this. So let me just put the brown one here. I'll put this is the camel shade. And we'll just add the orange one here as well. So I think this is probably the closest to the brown shade so I think out of all of the ones that I have looked at, the second shade in Byredo is the closest to the brown shade in the SUQQU. Of course, the orange is something that is unique to this one, but you know, this khaki camel, it doesn't really go with any of the shades here, but you know, it's such a light neutral shade that if you know, it's close enough. So it's, yeah, I think you could still get a similar look. Again, the Byredo formula here is very different. It's much more like a liquid metal on the eyes, a liquid satin metal, compared to the SUQQU, which is softer, more of a softer satin finish. So, I mean, that's going to be probably your biggest difference on the eyes is the finish. But color-wise, I think these two browns are the closest out of any of these that we've looked at. All right, so please let me know if you would like another follow-up video on the SUQQU Summer collection. I was originally intending on doing that, but since the launch kind of, you know, wasn't really up to par, I'm not sure if that's something people are still interested in. So overall, though, I do have to say that the SUQQU Summer collection, I really like it. I like everything that I picked up. I am really loving the lip items I picked up, particularly the lip glow in 104 and the 104 eyeshadow palette. So I love those. Both of the eyeliners are fantastic. And if you can get the eyeliners, I would definitely recommend it because not only are they one of the best formulas and applicators in my opinion, but these colors are, you know, just a little bit more unique than what you normally see. So I really, really appreciate those. That sums up all of my updates for today, and I will be having another update video in a couple of weeks. So if there are items that you would like to get any updates on, please be sure to let me know anytime between now and then. And you can either leave it down below in the comments or DM me on Instagram. I am at Alexis Jong. And if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. That helps a lot. And consider subscribing if you haven't already. I hope to see you next time and have a great day. Stay safe and healthy.